Hello again. Nice to be here with you. Today we're going to be looking at another exciting topic in basic science. And this is a class that actually covers the JSS1 students to the JSS3 and those actually preparing for the BESA examination. Today we're going to be looking at an exciting topic under ecology, and the topic is mode of association by biotic factors. Now, when we're talking about biotic factors, we're actually looking at living organisms that affect an ecosystem, okay? Living organisms that affect an ecosystem. And there is actually a relationship that goes on between living organisms where they interact. We're going to discuss much about this. But before we go ahead to talk about it, let's look at our content for today. Things and area subtopics we are expected to talk about under this particular topic. We will be looking at what we call commensalism. We'll also be talking about mutualism, parasitism, predation, and competition. Now, these are the different modes of associations among living organisms. We can also call them ecological relationship. You can also call it biological association. So these are different, what I just mentioned, are different modes of association that occurs between two or more species in an ecosystem, all right? Now, let's begin with this. As an introduction, I was actually trying to explain ecological relationship. Now, it is very important you understand that ecological relationship has to be in place for the survival of an ecosystem or for the proper functioning of an ecosystem. There must be a natural ecological relationship, if I may call it. Now, an ecological relationship is actually a relationship between organisms in an ecosystem. Remember, this is not a relationship between living organisms and the non-living environment, which entails the definition for ecology. But this is actually telling us of relationship that occurs between living organisms. It can be between an animal and a plant. It can be between a plant and a plant. But it always happens between organisms of the same species or organisms of different species. Now, most of these associations are beneficial. Some of them are neutral, and some of them are actually harmful. Sometimes they call it symbiotic. Sometimes they call it oppositions, all right? So some association or relationship can be oppositions. Some relationship can be, let's say, symbiotic, that is mutual benefits for both organisms. And there are so many others we're going to be looking at. Now, all organisms in an ecosystem are connected. They are well connected, hence their relationship. And because of this connection, they go into several benefits from each other, or they derive several benefits from each other. Now, these modes of relationship we're going to be looking at, I have mentioned them in our content. We're going to be talking about commensalism. We're going to be talking about mutualism. We're going to be talking about parasitism. We're going to be talking about predation. And then we're also going to be discussing competition. So these are the modes of association we are going to be dealing with today. Okay? So if you're set, let's continue and proceed. The first one we're on our list is commensalism. Now, what is actually commensalism? Now, commensalism has to do with a type of ecological relationship or biological association between two organisms in which one benefits from the other and the other does not benefit, but it is not harmed in the process. The other doesn't benefit, but is not harmed in the process, while the other, which is one pair of the association, one other organism of the association benefits. All right? So the one that actually benefits is what we call the commensal. The one that benefits is the commensal. The one that does not benefit, it can be called the host. Now, examples of association, ecological association that undergoes or that can be termed as commensalism is the association or relationship between the remora fish and the shark. Now, you will notice with me, if you are conversant with some documentaries on marine habitats and all the others, probably if they're doing a documentary on some aquatic animals, mostly marine aquatic animals. When you come across the shark, you will discover the shark doesn't move alone. Most times you see smaller fishes accompany the shark in that move. Even when the shark is hunting, when the shark is actually feeding, these organisms benefit so much. That's the remora fish. They benefit from the leftovers from the shark. They also benefit protection from the shark. The shark is actually an apex predator in terms of marine habitat, is a predator. So definitely no aquatic organism or aquatic organisms are always careful when they come in contact with the shark. So in other words, the remora fish actually benefits protection from other predators, knowing that it is always in relationship or an association with the shark. Another example of commensalism, it is actually noticed in the relationship between the oysters and the crabs. Now, the oyster actually doesn't benefit so much or benefit anything from the crab, but the crab benefits protection in that the crab most times hide or take shelter in the shell of the oyster fish, okay, of the oysters. So they benefit shelter, they also benefit what? Protection. But the oyster is not harmed in the process. It's not harmed in the process. The oyster also does not benefit anything from the crab. In the same manner, the same thing when you look at the remora fish and the shark. The shark does not benefit anything from the remora fish. The remora fish benefits a lot, whole lot from the shark, but the shark is not harmed in the process. So that is the first mode of association or ecological relationship that occurs in a functioning ecosystem. Another one that occurs in a functioning ecosystem is mutualism. In some books, they call it symbiotics or symbiosis. Okay, now in terms of symbiotic relationship or association, now it's the type of association or relationship in which organisms or both organisms in the relationship benefit from each other. So they benefit from each other. No one is at loss. No one is not benefiting. Everyone in the relationship benefits from each other. So they help themselves to actually survive. Now, both species receives an advantage by working with the other. So here there is a teamwork. Here there is a mutual benefit for both parties or both organisms that are involved in the relationship. An example is found in the relationship between the butterfly and the flowering plants. And I'm going to explain this. In terms of the butterfly or the bee, they actually go to the flowering plants to benefit from the nectar, okay, that the flowering plants produce. They take that as food. So they suck from the nectar, which is to their own benefit. But in the same process where they suck from the nectar, they help to carry out pollination. They help to carry out pollination. And pollination is one of the ways through which plants carry out sexual reproduction. Is what precedes sexual reproduction, or what precedes fertilization in flowering plants. So, and fertilization is a form of reproduction. And one of the purposes for reproduction is to ensure continuity of life. So in other words, in this type of association or relationship, both the butterfly and the flowering plant benefit from each other. They benefit from each other. Another example is found in the relationship between the algae and the fungi. Now, this association is called lichen. In the same manner, both organisms benefit from each other. Next is parasitism. Now, please note, commensalism and symbiotic association, or you can call it mutualism, that is commensalism and mutualism, are both beneficial relationships. Okay, you can say they are beneficial, or you can say that mutualism is beneficial while commensalism, okay, you can say commensalism is beneficial rather, while mutualism is neutral. So we have both the neutral and then we have the beneficial relationship. I repeat again, I said that the mutualism is actually a neutral relationship because both organisms benefit from each other. But in terms of commensalism, it is actually, I can call it not you can refer it as a beneficial relationship. Okay, we can call it a beneficial relationship. That's in terms of commensalism because one organism benefits. All right. The next one is parasitism. Now, in this relationship, one species of organism benefits, which is called the parasite, while the other species of the organism does not benefit, but it is harmed in the process. So you can see that parasitism is actually the opposite of commensalism. In terms of commensalism, one benefits, the other doesn't benefit, but it is not harmed. But in terms of parasitism, one benefits, the other does not benefit, but it is harmed in the process. It is harmed in the process. The one that is harmed is called the host. The one that does not, that benefits, is called the parasite. Now, a parasite is actually a living organism that lives on or in another organism, derives benefits and derives nutrients from it. Now, remember I said on or in. That means we have two types of parasites. We have what we call ectoparasites, that is parasites that can be found outside the body of an organism, and then we have endoparasites, which means a parasites that can be found inside the body of an organism. An example of an endoparasite is tapeworm. Okay, most flatworms are endoparasites. Nematodes are also endoparasites. When we're talking about nematodes, we're looking at guinea worm, hookworm, and so on. They are examples of endoparasites. We also have the ectoparasites. Ectoparasites are the ones found on your body, like you can see the one on the screen. We have the tick, we have the leech, we have the bed bugs. All these are ectoparasites. Now let's look at some of the examples of parasitism. Some examples of parasitism. One example of parasitism is the relationship between tapeworm and man. Relationship between tapeworm and man. In this relationship, the tapeworm is the parasite, while man is the host. The tapeworm lives in the intestinal walls of man, deriving and taking or absorbing the digested food, leaving the man hot in the process, depriving the man depriving the human it has infected with food, digested food, and so on. The same thing, we also have the mistletoe and flowering plants. Please note, mistletoe is a plant, but it is a parasitic plant. So in this case, in this relationship, mistletoe is the parasite, while the flowering plant is the host. So this is what we call parasitism. The next mode of association is called predation. It's called predation. Now, predation is actually an interesting type of a mode of association, or you can say ecological relationship, in which one organism kills another organism and eats the organism. So one kills and eats the other organism. It's actually a type of relationship. Okay, now the one that kills another organism is called the predator, while the one that is killed and eaten is called the prey. All right, you see that happen in several ecosystems. An example of this type of relationship is seen between lions and goats. You've seen that between wild animals and also between wild animals. We also have a relationship between snakes and frog. The snake here is the predator, and while the frog becomes the prey. So these are examples of predation as a mode of association that exists in an ecosystem. And finally, for today, we have the competition. Now, competition is actually an association. It brings about a relationship. Now, what is actually competition? Now, it is a process or situation or a condition where living organisms struggle for all the necessities of life. Now, when we're looking at necessities of life, we're talking about space. So they struggle for space, they struggle for shelter, they struggle for water, okay? They struggle for air and so many other necessities of life, okay? They struggle for food. So these are the necessities of life. And you see this type of association occurring even in humans. It also occurs between flowering plants and grasses. They struggle for water in the soil. They struggle for minerals. They struggle for space and so on. You also see that relationship between hyena and the lions. Probably the lions make a kill. The hyena wants to come and partake of that particular kill or that food. So they struggle for that particular food, which is the same as what? Competition. So competition, we have different types of competition. We have majorly two types. We have the inter-specific competition, and then we have the intra-specific competition. Now, inter-specific competition is a competition between two different species of organisms, while intra-specific competition is a competition that occurs between organisms of the same species. Organisms of the same species. Intra, organisms of different species. Inter, organisms of the same species. So these are the major types of competition. All right, and this is where we're going to draw the curtain for today's class. Please note what we have discussed so far as a way of reviewing what we've done. We've just talked about modes of association by biotic factors. And I told you that there's what we call ecological relationship. All living organisms are connected to themselves. They are all connected and they benefit from each other. And in fact, there must be a relationship that must occur between organisms for there to be a functioning ecosystem. And I told you we have several, about 5 of them I have mentioned. We talked about commensalism, which one benefits, the other doesn't benefit, but is not harmed in the process. We talked about mutualism, where both organisms benefit. We talked about parasitism, where one organism benefits, the other one is not benefiting, but is harmed in the process. We talked about predation, where one benefits by killing the other and eating the other, and the other one doesn't benefit. And then we also talked about competition, where two organisms struggle for all the necessities of life. And please take note, the first two we discussed, we said they are beneficial. We can call it beneficial relationship or association. In terms of commensalism, it is beneficial. In terms of mutualism, it is beneficial as well as neutral. But in terms of parasitism and predation, we can call that a harmful relationship. But it is actually a type of relationship that must occur and must be found in a functioning ecosystem. Remember, we said that all living things in an ecosystem are all connected. So this is what we're going to call it a wrap-up on this particular class for the Bye for now. Have a wonderful day.